My name is Caleb, and I never thought I would have to tell this story. I am sitting in the dark right now. The only light comes from the dashboard of my car. Outside, the wind is pulling at the trees. It is a cold, lonely sound. Most people think they know who their family is. They think they know who has their back. They think love is a solid thing, like a rock or a foundation. But I learned the hard way that love can be a weapon. It can be something used to keep you small, can be a way to make you feel invisible. For years, I watched my wife, Elena, disappear. I watched her give everything to people who didn't even see her. I watched her heart break in slow motion. And for a long time, I did nothing. I thought it wasn't my place. I thought it was better to be the quiet husband, to stay in the background. I was wrong. Tonight, that all ended. The silence is gone. The secret is out. And the people who tried to bury Elena are finally facing the truth. But it didn't come cheap. Truth never does. Let me tell you how it started. Elena and I have a simple life. We live in a small house near the coast. I work as an architect. Elena is an engineer. She is the smartest person I have ever met. She can look at a blueprint and see the soul of a building before the first stone is laid. She works for her family's firm, Vance Construction. It was started by her grandfather. It is a big deal in this town. Elena is the one who makes it run. She handles the contracts. She talks to the crews. She is on the job site at 6 in the morning in her work boots. She knows every bolt and every beam of every project they own. But to her mother, Diana, Elena is just a worker. Diana is a woman who lives for the spotlight. She is elegant. She is polished. She cares about how things look on the outside. She views the family business as a social ladder. And then there is Julian, Elena's younger brother. Julian is the golden boy. He is loud. He is flashy. He drives a car that costs more than our house. He has never spent a full day on a construction site in his life. He doesn't like the dust. He doesn't like the noise. But in Diana's eyes, Julian is the future. I remember a dinner 2 years ago. It was Diana's birthday. We were at a very expensive steakhouse. Elena had spent the whole week finishing a massive bid for a city bridge project. She was exhausted. Her hands were still stained with ink from the drawings. Julian showed up late. He sat down and started talking about a trip he took to Ibiza. He talked about the famous people he met. He talked about himself for an hour. When the bill came, Diana looked at Julian and beamed. She told him how proud she was of his vibrant spirit. She said he was the heartbeat of the Vance family. She didn't even ask Elena about the bridge. The bridge that would keep the company profitable for the next 5 years. Elena just sat there. She pushed a piece of steak around her plate. She looked so small in that big, fancy chair. It went on like that for a long time. Small cuts every day. Diana would host garden parties at the family estate. She would introduce Julian to all the big developers. She would call him the visionary of the firm. If someone asked what Elena did, Diana would just wave a hand. Oh, Elena helps with the paperwork. She's very organized. Organized, like she was a filing cabinet. Not the person who was actually building the city. I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand up and tell everyone the truth. But Elena would always catch my eye. She would give me a tiny shake of her head. "It's okay, Caleb," she would say later in the car. "I don't need the credit. I just want to do the work." But the work wasn't enough for Diana. She wanted the legacy. And she wanted that legacy to have Julian's name on it. Last summer, things took a dark turn. Arthur, Elena's father, started getting sick. He is a quiet man, a man of the woods and the workshop. He and Elena were always close. They didn't need words. They could sit in a woodshop for 4 hours and not say a thing. When he got sick, he pulled back from the company. He spent most of his time in his cabin by the lake. That was when Diana started making her move. She started talking about a leadership transition. She started bringing Julian into the high-level meetings. I overheard a conversation at the house one Sunday. I was in the kitchen getting water. Diana and Julian were in the sunroom. "We have to make sure the transition is clean," Diana said. Her voice was like a knife. Arthur is tired. He isn't thinking clearly. If we don't secure the main assets now, Elena might make things difficult. Julian laughed. Elena won't do anything, Mom. She's a foot soldier. She does what she's told. Still, Diana said, the lake property and the headquarters land. They must go to you. It's about the image of the firm. A man needs to be at the helm of Vance Construction. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. They weren't just passing over her for a promotion. They were planning to strip her of her inheritance. They were going to take the land her grandfather had left for the family. I told Elena that night. She sat on the edge of our bed. She didn't look surprised. She looked hollow. I knew she felt that way, Elena whispered. But the land? Grandpa promised that would be split. It's the only place I feel at home. We have to fight this, I said. Elena looked at me with tired eyes. How, Caleb? It's her company now. Dad is too sick to argue. Julian is her favorite. I'm just the girl in the work boots. She turned off the lamp. I lay there in the dark for a long time. I felt a slow, hot anger building in my chest. I realized then that being the quiet husband wasn't helping. It was allowing the bullies to win. 2 weeks later, Arthur called me. He didn't call the house. He called my cell phone while I was at a project site. Caleb, he said. His voice was thin. Can you come to the cabin? Don't tell Diana. Don't tell Elena. I went. The cabin was quiet. The air smelled like pine and old wood. Arthur was sitting on the porch. He had a blanket over his legs. He looked older than the last time I saw him. He motioned for me to sit down. I've been watching, Arthur said. He looked out at the water. I've been watching for 30 years. I've seen how Diana treats our daughter. I didn't say anything. I just waited. I am a quiet man, Caleb, he said. I don't like the fighting. I let Diana have the spotlight because it made her happy. But I'm not blind. I know who built that company. I know who has the soul of a Vance. He reached into a wooden box beside his chair. He pulled out a thick blue folder. Diana thinks she knows the books, Arthur said. A small, dry smile touched his lips. She thinks she knows every piece of land we own. But she never cared about the details. She only cared about the fancy titles. He handed me the folder. This is the deed to the headquarters land, he said. And the title to the lake house. They were never part of the corporate assets. My father kept them in a private trust. A trust that only I control. My heart started to race. I transferred them this morning, Arthur said. To you and Elena. Joint ownership. I looked at the papers. My name was there. Elena's name was there. The signatures were fresh. The notary seal was still warm. Don't tell her yet, Arthur warned. Wait for the dinner. Diana is planning a gala for the company's 50th anniversary. She thinks that's the night she will crown Julian. Let her talk. He looked at me with a sudden, sharp intensity. You be the voice she needs, Caleb, because she won't speak for herself. She's too good for that. But you can speak for her. I took the folder. Felt like I was holding a lightning bolt. The night of the gala was a nightmare of silk and perfume. Diana had rented out the ballroom of the grandest hotel in the city. There were ice sculptures. There was a 10-piece orchestra. Everyone who was anyone in the construction world was there. Elena looked beautiful. She was wearing a deep green dress. But she looked like she was walking toward a firing squad. Julian was at the bar. He was telling a group of investors about his plans to modernize the firm. He was talking about cutting costs and selling off underperforming assets. I knew what that meant. He wanted to sell the land and the history to fund his lifestyle. Diana took the stage at 9 o'clock. She looked like a queen. She thanked everyone for coming. She spoke about the history of Vance Construction. She spoke about her father-in-law. Then she looked at Julian. As we look to the next 50 years, she said. Her voice was full of fake emotion. It is my greatest honor to announce the new chairman of the board, a man with the vision and the drive to take us into the future. My son, Julian Vance. The room erupted in applause. Julian started walking toward the stage with a smug grin on his face. Elena's head dropped. She looked at the floor. I could see her shoulders shaking just a little bit. That was it. That was the moment. I didn't think. I just moved. I walked onto the stage. I stepped right into the center of the light. The applause died down. People looked confused. Diana froze. Her smile stayed on her face, but her eyes went cold. "Caleb," she whispered, leaning away from the microphone. "What are you doing? Get down." I didn't get down. I reached out and took the microphone from the stand. "I'd like to say a few words about legacy," I said. My voice sounded strange in the big room. It was deep. It was steady. "We've heard a lot tonight about vision," I continued. "But a building doesn't stand on vision. It stands on a foundation. It stands on the work of people who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty." I looked at Elena. She was looking up now. Her eyes were wide. "For 15 years, I said, I have watched my wife build this company. I have watched her stay late while others were out partying. I have watched her solve problems that would have broken a lesser person." Diana tried to grab the mic. "That's enough, Caleb. This is a private celebration." I stepped back. "It's a public announcement, Diana, so let's make it official." I pulled the blue folder from my jacket. I held it up. "This is a legal deed," I said. "It was signed and filed last week. It concerns the land this company sits on, and the lake property where the Vance family has lived for 3 generations." The room was silent now. You could hear a pin drop. "These assets are no longer part of the Vance construction portfolio," I said. "They are private property, and they belong to Elena." The silence stayed for 3 seconds. Then the room exploded. Julian reached the stage. He tried to shove me. "Give me those. You're lying. Mom, he's lying." Diana was white as a ghost. She looked at the folder in my hand like it was a snake. "Arthur would never. He doesn't have the authority." "He did," I said quietly. "And he used it." I looked down at the front row. Arthur was there. He wasn't sitting in the shadows anymore. He was standing up. He looked at Diana. He didn't say anything. He just nodded once. It was the most powerful thing I have ever seen. The rest of the night was a blur of shouting and tears. Diana tried to claim the papers were fake. She tried to call her lawyers. But the lawyers were at the party. And once they saw the notary seal, they stayed very quiet. Julian was throwing a fit in the corner. He realized that without the land assets, his modernization plan was worthless. He had the title, but Elena had the ground. He was a king with no kingdom. Elena walked up to me on the stage. She didn't look at her mother. She didn't look at the crowd. She just looked at me. "You did that for me?" she whispered. "I didn't do it," I said. "I just told the truth. You did the rest." We walked out of that ballroom together. We didn't wait for the dessert. We didn't wait for the apologies that were never going to come. We drove to the lake house. We are sitting on the porch now. The same porch where Arthur gave me the folder. The company is in chaos. Diana is sending 100 texts a minute. Julian is threatening to quit. Let them. Vance Construction might be a mess right now, but for the first time in her life, Elena isn't worried about the building. She is looking at the stars. She is breathing the air. She is home, and she is finally seen. The revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't mean. It was just a quiet man and a quiet woman taking back what was always theirs. It was the sound of a foundation finally settling into place. I look at Elena in the moonlight. She is smiling. A real smile. Not the one she uses for pictures. And I know finally that the story is just beginning. And this time we are the ones holding the pen. Would you like me to adjust the pacing of the final scene or expand on the fallout between Elena and her mother?